To the teacher, blessed one, the fullest joy, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, surviving the moral of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the secure upon the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata Lord of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely, fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the secure from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata and Lord of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, we of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme science, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds alone, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit and the qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Spiral mirage, flame of the lamp, illusion of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain their global state, subdue the flow of thoughts, and be delivered from emotional suffering of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje chono soje chono no chanchu bandu dande jare nage je soje ba chono je ndola penje sanje drupa sanje chono soje chono no chanchu bandu dande jare nage je soje ba chono je ndola penje sanje drupa sanje chono soje chono no chanchu bandu dande jare nage je soje ba chono je ndola penje sanje drupa sho
I go for refuge and tell my mind to the Buddha, the Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I created practice and giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of the Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and tell my mind to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of the Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and tell my mind to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
tamje je mana ja zono de da sanje jumbe de ya de je je wa ja jumba yang do ba de sanje je ba shazon de ma de wa je wa je de je ma je wa de ba ma je wa da da be da je de sanje jumbe de zo de je je wa de so no da bi je to ma ge wa za wa ma chu me sebera be je ma zo no je de ren je je be je so de je de chen no je ma de ju ye ren ba to no de ba Tebe meba namo ngoba gaba shaya cherab sije to na sije kunje je temba chanju samba namje yawa pabe kaza na je yangen de chonje de je ba de meba baba sanje me je ba so na ta ba yani ko je de chome je ko sumba me ba de ba so da ge nyawa ma go ba so me ba ta ma de ba ne na ba ko mo da na ba ko no de ge je na ma de ba na ma shin do je ba yo do wa ta na 세발로 주고 추원에 이제 형도 내가 좀 다다 좀 산지 좀 내는 게 이제 내야 뭐 양양 안 되는 양도 안 되는 심지어 통제가 있어서 내가 내 산지 좀 내는 게 고시에 있는 양도 다배전도 뭐 봐도 이거 토마도 돼야 순서서 뭐 만져 봐 요도도 봐 요도도 봐 요도 좀 양도 내면 뒤에 봐 이제 통화만 되요 봐 개발은 저 소소한 거 좀 내는 게 무슨 chuyện của mình là nhiều bây giờ mà rồi bây giờ chúng tôi bây giờ mình để mà mình có thể mà để mà yêu bây giờ có theo mà chỉ biết cái này là bây giờ bây giờ theo mà giờ bây giờ cha giờ bây giờ sau đó cái bây giờ chuyện như rồi chúng bây giờ bây giờ rồi cũng nó chỉ bây giờ rồi bây giờ mà không cái tu gì như là rồi tao vào thì không bây giờ có đâm được là cha sẽ nó So, refuting arising from self and others. How the meaning of the scripture is established by reason. This has two parts: establishing the selflessness of phenomena through reasoning and establishing the selflessness of person through reasoning. Establishing selflessness of phenomena through reasonings. This has four parts: refuting arising from the four extreme of the both level of truth. Number two, the rebutting the objections against refuting the intrinsic arising, how arising through dependent originations prevents distortion of the adhering to the extreme views. Number four, the fruit of having engaged in analysis with reasoning. So now here, this whole trying to explain the from the beginning, it says that chapter 9, it was saying that so when the Bodhisattva was on the fifth ground enters the sixth ground, he does so by means of 10 perfection, 10 perfect equanimity with respect to the phenomena. So what are these 10? So from the beginning it says, right? So the Bodhisattva was the ground fifth to interest in the meditative equipoise, then turn into the sixth ground. So what is the object? What is the realizations that Bodhisattvas, the fifth ground, become or attain the sixth ground? So the object, that what they are realizing, what they are meditating on, what is that thing that they're abiding through kind of, continuously meditating and then turn into the sixth ground. So so this says the perfect equanimities. So what are the 10s? They are perfect equanimity of all phenomena in their absence of signs, and the perfect equanimity of all phenomena in their absence of defining characteristic, likewise in their absence of birth, so no arising, this thing, and in being unborn, right, in being void, in being in their primordial purity, in their freedom from the elaborations, perfect equanimity in their absence of affirmations, perfect equanimity in their absence of affirmations. So number 9 is the perfect equanimity of all phenomena in their resemblance to illusions, to dream, to mirage, to echo, right? To reflections of the moon in the waters, to mirror image, to conjurations, and the number 10, the perfect equanimity of all phenomena in their absence of duality of real and unreal. So all kind of, the main point is the giving it different names. So, but the essence here is the absence of intrinsic existence. So this is the absence of intrinsic existing is the object, the fifth ground, abiding continuously on that absence of intrinsic existence. With that, they become or they turn into the sixth ground. So, so this is why they're here saying now refuting arising from self and others. So this is one of the absence of intrinsic existence with arising, absence of intrinsic existing with, the relation of the cause and effect, absence of intrinsic existing kind of with relation to the person, absence of intrinsic existence with relation to the, the action and agents, absence of intrinsic existence with relation to the what do you call the relation, cause and effect, right? So this number 10 is saying that now this is the emphasizing, or precisely emphasizing on absence of intrinsic existing or no arising, right? Absence of intrinsic existing arising. So And another word, this is absent. The arising exists in conventionally, so it means you can also interpret that absence arising can be exists on the perception, right? The arising can be exists with appearance. So here the refuting arising from the four extreme on the both level of truth. So this has three parts, stating the propositions that there is no arising through intrinsic nature. Number two, the logical proofs that establish this through reasoning, and conclusion of having negated arising from the four extreme. So four chronologic. So if there is arising, so then the question is the arising of first, arising of what? Arising of the sprout, arising of next life, arising of the, how's that? Arising of the sprout or the next life or any kind of things that affect that arises from the cosmic condition. So the question is, do they arise by themselves, or do they arise from other, or do they arise from both, or do they arise from no cause? So it's the four chronologic, four possibilities. So once we negate that, and there is no left as something that intrinsically arising. So by negating objectivity of the, arising by itself and other and both and no cause. So there is no fifth possibilities. So that really kind of, the implies that the arising is merely exists as the appearance of the mind or appearance of the conceptualizations. So that we can accept. We can accept arising through conceptualization. We can accept arising in the concept. So we can accept the arising is ordinarily. So there is no arising by itself, other and both, no cause. Right. So negating objectivity and constituting the arising merely exists through the conceptualizations. So whatever the conceptualization exists through the conceptualization is the conventional reality. The reality that that exists through making it up, right? So so number one here, stating the propositions that there is no arising through the intrinsic nature, stating the proposition there is no arising through intrinsic nature, understanding that out of 10 perfect equanimities, so among the 10 perfect equanimity, so one of the equanimity here is absence of arising. So the other perfect equanimity can be easily indicated by presenting through reasoning the perfect equanimity of the absence of arising through intrinsic nature alone. The noble Nagarjuna stated following at the beginning of his treatises on the middle way: not from itself, not from other, not from both, nor from no cause, nothing anywhere ever possess arising at all. So anywhere is kind of referring to the locations, right? Locations means the place, right? So the arising, the intrinsic arising by itself is not in the hot place or cold place, or in the water, or in the land or rock, right? So no place that you can find things that arise by itself. So anywhere you can, anywhere it's not possible finding things arises from others. Any way that you can find arising from both, right? Notice there is no such thing that arises with no cause anywhere. So ever possess arising at all, which means now the arising has to be exists merely in the face of thought or the conception. So that by negating objectivity and establishing the conventional reality. So that means is free at the middle ways. Middle way means, you the free from two extreme, right? So here the ever means is synonymous with on any occasions, while the word anywhere, which is synonymous with any place, is locative. And these terms, which present the basis where there is no arisings, indicate place, time, philosophical standpoints. The word nothing refers to the things of inner and outer that do not arise in any of these three terms: place, time, and philosophical point. Sometimes people may, I think it's possible people may think that, things do arise by itself from the Vivek school standpoint. So things do not arising at all, even in conventional reality, from the standpoint of Prasangic schools. People may think that. So the Lama Tsongkapha here in Navagenesis, not like that. There is no place that you can find thing arises by itself, from others, from both, without a cause. And also there is no such thing that arises from the school, a philosophical point of view from the Vivek school, but not arising from the Prasangic school point of views. So, not from itself as follows. It is never possible for anything of the outer and inner worlds to arise from itself at any place, at any time, and through any philosophical standpoint. This is how one should apply the three terms and explain. Similarly, one should extend this application of the three terms to the other three propositions from other and both and no cause as well. It is never possible for anything to arise from others, from both self and other, from no cause. Although in the Tibetan version of clear words, the clear word is from the Chandrakirti. So this phrase is translated as a from itself, nothing whatsoever. The translation suggested here read better. So Tsikse, I think Lama Tsongkapha so it's kind of implying that he has read the Sanskrit too. So this is how the Tibetan reads it better. Yeah, I think during the after the Atisha, I think for a few years, many Tibetan kind of the scholars they an interest in learning the Sanskrit languages. So there is a Geshe Chengawa during the Kadamba Geshe Chengawa. So there's a biography of the Geshe Chengawa. So it's talking about how he studied the Sanskrit in Tibetan. Because at that time there's many the Indian masters, they visit Tibet and stay for a few years. And then there was a lot of Tibetan translators at the time. So that's why in the in the Tibetan translations from the Sanskrit to the Tibetan, so they modified many the words. So sometimes the Sanskrit the words are not very clear. So make it more clear and more precise, and when translated in Tibetan, like a Buddha, say in the Sanskrit. So Buddha can be translated or interpreted in many ways. So they translate in Tibetan, they call Sangye. Sang means purified all the defilements, and Gyera means and perfected the knowledge. So this gives you the definition of the Buddha. So the Buddha does not really have that much, unless you study about the Buddhas. But the word itself there's not much emphasizing on the quality of the Buddha. The very name the Buddha is when Buddha Shakyamuni, not too long ago, he enlightened, and one of the there's a small girl, there's a girl from the village. She often brings the food to the Buddha. So after Buddha got enlightened, and then there was this, I think 2 boys, and then maybe 3 girls or something. And then the one who offers the rice soup to Buddha, and she mentioned that. So in my village, the elder knowledgeable people used Buddha to one who is enlightened, so one who is fully knowledgeable. And then when she used that word Buddha, and then there's a sound in the space, so it's kind of like there's the kind of the sign of delighted all the Buddha and Bodhisattvas. So then that Buddha, kind of the name of the Buddha, kind of what do you call it, almost become a permanent for the Buddha. So this is one kind of small kind of village that use even just in the high educated the people have this kind of terms that use. So they just give it to the Buddha. So Buddha can be used at the time for blooming the flowers. Buddha can be used someone who is awakened from the sleeping. And both can be used. Someone is fully kind of, I'll say, the knowledge. So that Sanskrit, when it translated in Tibetan make the real definition in there. Sangye. So yeah, then they translate in English, it becomes the Buddha. So, yoga become yoga, the Buddha become Buddha. So yeah, even in India, they're very flexible. They accept that. So yeah, it's okay, Buddha. So I think at the time that during the Buddha, and many times the Anandas, they refer to the Buddha as Tathagat. Tathagat. So yeah, the phrase "at any place, at any time" negate the possibility of was interpreting along the lines akin to these situations where grapes do not grow. Yeah, grapes, right? Do not grow in some areas due to the place. The crops do not grow during some seasons due to the time. Thus, the inclusion of the word never is not meaningless. Similarly, the phrase through any philosophical standpoint rejects the thought that although intrinsic arising may not exist from the standpoint of Madhyamika, it could exist due to the philosophical standpoint of the essentialist school. So this is not to this is not to state, right? However, that things do not arise according to the essentialist schools.
Need to explain the essentialist schools.
Essentialist schools mean schools who assert the intrinsic nature of the phenomena. Things do exist by their own natures. So, school who assert that, or propounding the intrinsic existing of the phenomena. So they're called essentialist school. Vibhashika school, Shautantika school, mind-only school, and even the medieval autonomous school. Savatantrika schools. So, except the Prasangic school, all essentialists. Means things do exist by their own essence. Right? So the commentary says they hear the term not should be associated with arising, not from itself, not from others, should be associated with arising from itself, so on, the proof of existence, and not with the existence. What's that? For the negation of that existence itself is affected, right? Affected by way of implications. Mayis. So not means what is that not? And there's a Chandrakirti's commentaries. Mayishi the Yavani the Dages. Yavani the Dages. Not means it is not intrinsic. It is not intrinsic because nothing born from itself, born from others, and both and without cause. Therefore, not. It is intrinsic. So, in the syllogistic reasonings, like sprout, it says sprout do not arise intrinsically because no sprout born by itself, no sprout born from other, no sprout born from both, no sprout born from without cause. So that's a syllogistic. And the consequentialist the reasoning is like sprout should be, or sprout must born from either born from by itself or from other or both or without cause, because sprout is intrinsically exist. So it's the consequentialist, showing the contradictions. If the sprout is arising intrinsically, so then 4 options, right? It is arises by itself, or from other, or both, or without cause. So if you could not find that the sprout is arising from itself and from others, or from both, and without cause, and there's no way you can, establish that sprout is arising intrinsically. So consequentialist means kind of directly shows the contradictions, and then that gives you the conviction or the inferentials, right?
Is the logic behind why it can't be both because self-arising and other naturally contradict? Because if it arose from the self, then it couldn't be produced from something else. Like that's just what it seems like in my head.
So, for example, hypothetically, if the sprout is arising, so there is the arising of the sprout, and that arising of the sprout means it's activity. There's the activity of arising, and that activity is arising is caused by, or done by, or activated by the sprout itself. So that is the sprout arises by itself. So the arising of the sprout, activity is activated by the sprout itself. Then the question is when. So two possible. Is it during the sprout that is already arisen, being produced, or is it during the sprout hasn't been born yet? Right. So if you choose the first one, the arisen sprout when it's being produced, during that time, there is no possible of that sprout is being arising. It is already arisen. And again, to arises, you have to arise from the seed. Seed at that time, seed is ceased to exist. There is no way it can born from. Right. So now the second option is unborn sprout. So unborn sprout is no sprout at all. Right. It is absence of sprout. So how can unborn sprout activate the arising of the sprout? Right. How can unborn sprout is causing or affecting or causing the activity of arising? So the Bodhisattva, if that is the case, if that is the possible, Bodhisattva says, if the unborn sprout can activate the arising of the sprout, so then there's an unborn son can raise himself from his own collective wealth. So if unborn son cannot raise himself, how can unborn sprout is activating the arising? So in that, if that is possible, an unborn son can cry for milk, right? Or so that's, yeah, I think that is the reason they say there is no such thing that arising that you can pinpoint or you can objectively kind of point here that there is the arising. So and then the Prasangic school, when they negate that kind of in this way, and the other school of thought, what they kind of their understanding from the Prasangic school negations. So they think, oh, the Prasangic school, they are totally negating even the conventional reality. So they are in the nihilism. They deny the arising of the sprout. So arising, they think that if there is arising of the sprout, it has to be done with the sprout which is already being produced or not being produced. Right? So they're more likely to accept unborn has the activity of arising. So why? Because this is that yet to be born or unborn is we call future. So future has the activity. If the future has no activity and future does not give you any hope or any desire, right? Like there is people do not how to say. So there is, and for example, in ordinary people, they don't really collect the money or they do put effort to buy long rabbit horn or short rabbit horn or sharp rabbit horn or dull rabbit horn. So because they know this not exist. So why they kind of try to, how to say, get this. So, so the so that the except the Prasangic school. So this two options is very clear, even for them. The sprout which is already arisen or not arisen. So they're also, this is only two options. They're more likely to go with unborn. Right? So there are more kind of things that, well, this unborn is doing something. Because so so by negating the arising, that intrinsic or inhere, that is arising of the sprout, how say, inhere with arisen sprout or unarisen sprout. Right? So their arising is not inhere with the sprout which is already arisen, and the arising also, activity arising also inhere with the unborn sprout. So that will not inherently exist. So then what you call, what is your understanding of arising? Do you totally negate or annihilate the arising, concept of arising? And the Prasangic goes, we don't really annihilate that. So we say, yes, arising is possible. There is arising of the sprout. Today, there is coming of this tomorrow. Right? So the coming of the tomorrow is constructed, right? Constructed based on or depending upon today's the condition. Today's conditions are not standing still. It is continuously disintegrating. So that impermanence of the today is the condition, or how's that? It is the condition that reflects in your mind. Now tomorrow is coming soon. So the future exists by depending upon present, right? Future is not exist by itself. So when the future exists by depending on today, so therefore, the future, when you reflect on the futures, it seems to have activity. So one of the activity is coming, arising. So that we can accept. There is the appearance. So that's the one of the reasons. So the sprout must not arising intrinsically, right? Because it's not arising by itself. So not from other means second the others means, right? So the South Tantric Middle Way and Minority School, Sotantric School, and Vabhashika School believe that the sprout is arising from other because other is referring to the seed. Seed is different from the sprout and different from the time. The time of the seed and the time of the sprout is different. And then the color, the size, all of them, every conditions are different. So therefore, the sprout must arise from other. So now the Prasangika school says the other means the sprout has to be born from other. So if the sprout is born from others, and you must, for example, so do you think you have, so morning that when you wake up, are you wake up from the, how to say, wake up from your own, the person who has sleep right last night, or you wake up from there's someone else sleeping. So you think this when you wake up, oh, I'm a different person. The last night who sleep is different, and morning that you wake up is different. If you're different, so then the criminal who has charged with the crime, and that the criminal is different from one who is committing the crime. Right. So then the yogurt has to be different from the milk. So from the different cause, and produces the different effect. Right, yogurts must be born from different cause. So, and then when you die, when you're born in next life, and next life person is different from yourself. So this life, all this positive karma, negative karma, it won't cause you any problem in the next life because next life person is different from yourself. So you can do bad as much as you can, then he will suffer. So if you think the yogurt is turned into yogurt is no different from the milk that you have fermenting, right? So the sprout is no different from the seed. And so that is the one thing, right? And this different is also not accepted, even in ordinary perceptions. Ordinary, they don't really say or they don't really think that this yogurt is kind of, from the born from others. And in ordinary world, people, they says, when you plant the seed and the the sprout that arises from that seed, people says, pointing at that tree or the sprout, they plant, they say, this I plant, right? They don't say, I plant that and this happened, right? This is what I plant. So mother pointing to her child, I gave birth to this. She won't say, this boy is 20-year old. I gave birth like one day old child or 1 minute child. Right? So they don't see the different that they. So in conventionally, ordinary perceptions, there is no concept of different between cause and effect. And then the second thing is that if they are really different, seed, barley seed and sprout are different, yogurt and milk are different. So different, substantially different. If the substantially different, and this has to be like apple and orange. So the substantially different, and this two has no relation at all. Like cow and horse, apple and orange. So they are not different like apple and orange, which means not substantially. And then it is not conventionally, even in the ordinary perceptions, they don't see them are different. So ordinary perceptions, not accepting seed and sprout are different, and yogurt and milk is different. So, and then, and they are not substantially two different things. So, now what that implying is the Sotanic school and the Minor school seed and sprout the differentness. Philosophically, it superimposes. Right? So that different is superimpositional. So that is the one of the extreme kind of view on the the view of seed and sprout being different. Yogurt and milk are different. So therefore, not born from others, not born from itself, not born from others, and not born from both. So then the question is, so you have negated the born from itself and others, why do you need add? Why do you need to add born from both? So by negating by itself and others, it's already negated the both. So then this is, yes, this has to be added in because some of the school of thought, like Jainism, they believe there is the self or Atma. There's two kind of Atmas. The Atma is born from both. So it means there is, like for example, when the human being died and born in the God being, so there's one Atma with this human body, right, is die with the human body, and another Atmas. So another Atmas, which is independent, which goes to the next life. So goes to the next life. And then there is two Atma. So one with God being's Atma with one God being God body, and Atma that come from the human body to the God, transferred to the human body to the God body. So to kind of, to how to say, emphasize that kind of Genesis point of view, and we added not from both. So we have, according to the Genesis, we have two Atma, two I. One eye has to die, so second eye, it has to go. So when you go to the next slide, when you're born, and then again there's two Atma. Now one Atma has to die, and one Atma has to go. So this whole kind of the ideas is all rooted into the essentials. Things do exist by their own essence. And then the fourth is things do not arise with no cause. So no cause is very obvious. Say anything happens without cause, nothing could happen. So if things arises, it has to be arises from the cause. So associated with arising from the self and so on. So what this state is that Nagarjuna's stanzas should not be read by dividing the stanzas into two parts. So with the last two lines presenting thesis and the first two lines presenting the argument, rather it should be read as there is no arising from itself ever or at any time, and extend this the same as a predications to the other three theses as well. So Lama Tsongkapha says this first line, the first stanzas, nor not from itself, not from others, not from both, not from no cause, anything, anywhere, ever possess arising at all. So many of the masters, particularly in Tibet at the time, some things that last line ever possess arising. So they think this is the establishment or constitute. So this is what they're trying to constitute. Things do not arise. And for the establishment, the criteria for the establishment are not from itself, not from other, not from both, not from no cause. So it looks like, it sounds kind of, the Lama Tsongkapha says, no, you shouldn't read it like that. Right? So this should be read like, things do not arise by itself. Things do not arise from other. Things do not arise from both. Things do not arise from no cause. Wherever, right? Anything, anywhere. So the first line is to promise. And then after the stanzas, and they kind of lay out the reasonings. So the first stanzas is not, you shouldn't be divided. So I think that's his opinions. So it's freedom. So you can read differently. So I think what he meant is because each stanzas is kind of lays out the reasoning or the criteria to to establish the first stanzas, right? So the rest of the stanzas is kind of supporting reasoning for the first stanzas. The first stanza should not explicitly mention the reasoning. Otherwise, there is no kind of repeating, right? Still, maybe Lama says, "Oh, I can accept both." So, Predication's point is simply the point is simply this: where they're arising through intrinsic nature, one would have to accept arising from any of the four possibilities as its evidence. Hence, the Chandrakirti referred to arising from four extremes as the proof of existence. So there's proof of existence. Now, when arising from the four extremes is negated, then by the implications, arising through intrinsic nature is also negated. So that's what Chandrakirti says. So Mayin not sound of not means they things do not arise from itself and other and both and without cause, right? So because what this indicates is if things arises from itself and other and both and without cause, that means things do exist by their own nature, right? So to how's it called? To reestablish the things do not exist or things do not arise from intrinsically, and then there's because of the nothing arises from the itself and both and other and no cause. That these are the criteria is continuously establishing nothing could arise intrinsically. Start making sense. So here, the main kind of establishment, what you want to constitute is, so I want to constitute, there is no such thing arises intrinsically, right? And what is your criteria to establish that kind of, nothing arises intrinsically? And then the criteria is because nothing arises from itself and other and both and no cause. Right. So that's why Chandrakirti says, refer to the arising from four extremes as the proof of existence. So the arising from the four possibilities is the proof of arising intrinsically. So no arising from itself and other and both and no cause is again the proof of no such thing arises intrinsically. It's the opposite of that, right? See. I think most of the I think there's the naturally, most of the people have kind of, there's more likely to think the future is the arising, right? So what is coming is the future. What has came is the present. So I think that's grammatically it seems correct, right? Future is the one that is coming, and the present is the one that has came. Right? So I think with that, right, from the it seems grammatically correct. Therefore, and you have more kind of leaning towards the yes, the future is arising. So, uh, so the question is, do you are you, how's that? Do you mean the futures? There is something as a future, and by itself doing the coming or arising, or you think there is the possibility the future is seems to be arising, it seems to be coming, right? It's seemingly coming, or seemingly arising. So what you want to say, the future is coming or future is arising means there's a, for example, if there's a cat, now this cat is coming, means there is a cat, right? So you saw the cat, now cat is kind of actively moving towards you, therefore you can say, now cat is coming. So in this way, do you see the future? There is something as a future that exists already. Now it is coming towards you. So, which if you accept that kind of this like cat is coming towards you, which means there is already a cat. So, which means there is already before the sprout is born, sprout is already exists somewhere in the waiting room, right? So, is this my time? So, is this my time? So, and then the ayat says, if you think that way, okay, the future is already being kind of designed, already in the shape. Now, only thing you do is just you wait it, which means your future Buddha is already somewhere, is already enlightened. So part of you is already being enlightened. So, so what makes you so much kind of why you are struggling, why you are putting a lot of effort, why you have confusing the understanding the Buddha's teaching, and even that you give up kind of study and cultivating knowledge, your future is already enlightened, and you can also say that to the students going to school says your future professor or engineer and doctor is already become. So even you just don't go to school, the doctor is still there, right? Your future doctor is already doctor. He's holding his own degree, right? So you can just call him, please send me your degree so I can find a job. So I don't want to go to school. So if that is not really find, it seems to be correct, which means future is coming, it is the seemingly or apparently it is coming, seem to be coming. But in the reality, there is no such thing as a future that exists in and of itself. So there is no such thing in that nature of the future which is coming or arising. So and again, if there is already your future in Buddha is already being enlightened, right? So if you want to build a house, You just lay out the foundations, and that the future house is already built. Right? You already have the house. So without kind of building up the walls and those, before you bought all the things required for the house, so you have already a house. So yeah, that's the kind of again seeing. So unborn son is raising himself. So now here, it seems Nagarjuna and the Prasangic school point of views is they are negating, kind of objectively they're saying there is no such thing as a future that exists in the nature of the future. Or there is no such thing as a future by itself has some kind of activity of coming or arising. Now the question is, if there is no such thing in the futures that can have the activity of coming or the arising, so what makes you see it as a coming from the future? So this is how's on this like like the seeing the mirage like water is like water. It appears to you as a water, and the closer you go, and then you could not find the water. So similarly, the future seems to have the arising and some kind of activity from itself. So when if you bring your mind closer to the nature of the future is defined by unborn, and yet to become. Right? Isn't this proving there is no such thing? It's unborn or yet to become, yet to be born. So you are saying yet to be born, but it is born. Right? Maybe that's the Yeti. So there's already contradictions. So I think that's why the ever possesses the arising at all. Ever possessing means now nothing really possess the arising or activity of arising or coming. So hence there is no fault of not being able to establish the absence of intrinsic arising by formulating the argument in this way. This is, this then is the meaning of the last word implications in the above commentary passage. I'm not saying that it is incorrect to take the negation of arising from four extreme as the logical reason to establish the absence of intrinsic arising. So Lama Tsongkapha was still saying, he also says there's four kind of negating four possibilities, right, is the reason to establish nothing arises intrinsically. But he says, don't read that from first stanzas. So, right, things do not arise intrinsically because things do not arise from itself and other and both, and I would say no cause. So in other words, the first stanza you have to just like leave it like kind of is a promise, is a propositions, and then the letter, all the each stanzas is the to establish that the first kind of true what is a good support, yeah, the supporting reasoning, or what else? Yeah,
The first stanza from the Nagarjuna, there's a Tibetan text has a word possessed in there, in the last line.
It's not possessing. So, in Sanskrit, anirodham, anitpadam, anitchedam, right? No. Anitpadam means no arising. So I think in the Tibetan lines just simply says there is no arising at all. So right, anywhere. Right. So ever there is no arising at all forever. And then like not from itself, not from other, not from both, not from no cause. So I think this is kind of in giving you the very vivid, our very normal contradictions. It is always there, but we don't see the contradictions. So contradictions in ordinary perception is saying it is unborn or yet to become. At the same time, there is arising. Right? That's very, very contradictory. Right? He is not there, he is not exist yet, but there is his activity. He is waving to you. Right? He has died and he's waving to you. So maybe so Lama Tsongkapha, and I'm not saying as it is done in the light of the middle way, light of the middle way, the Baba Vivek, I think. What I am saying is that dividing Nagarjuna stanzas into separate parts. So this is very Lama was is very defending us. So don't read this way. So stanzas separate parts in the manner described above is not what the text itself intended. Right? That kind of seems correct. The first line stanzas is the presentation. Right? This is what I see, and then the rest of the stanzas is trying to establish that, proving that. So through different logic, right? Through different avenue. So we're trying to prove there is no such thing arising intrinsically. Yeah, by reading this, it sounds like, if you are in front of Lama Tsongkapha, if you read this way, he will slap you. You don't know how to read the lines. things do not arise from other at any place, at any time, or because of any philosophical tenets, is how the three terms should be applied. Similarly, the following appears in the clear words. We accept conventional truth to be established by mere conditions. So this is the kind of, so this is the term that many times you can see the Buddha Palitas and the Chandrakirtis, mere conditions. So I think in Tibetan it says, Kenyan Devasangins. It sounds like, in the English translations, established by mere conditions. So mere conditions, if you kind of, interpret that as a conditionally arising, then that is wrong. So in Tibetan, Kenyan Devasangins. Kenyan is mere conditions. There's a right, mere conditions, Devasangins, just simply through indication. Right? Simply through indications. Simply through indications mean what is the condition? Is seeing there's a arising, accepting arising, and proving arising is not objectively. That kind of the arising of the sprout exists through mere indication. So indications means because you just construct the possibility of something and named with futures, and there is the indication of coming of that. Right. So in Tibetan, so in this in English they has the mere conditions, just simply mere conditions. In Tibetan, Genyi means the mere condition, Devasam just kind of just from indication. Devasams. Genyi Devasams.
Please give a definition of indication.
Indications of your speaking. So indications means, there's an indication. When you project the future, it indicates you as a coming. Right? When you say, oh, I have this much, I have collected this much money, now maybe I can buy that things. So now you see more and more you save money and more you see is possible. So all the possibility they indicate you, now it's coming soon. Right? So you project that, you construct that, and your constructions is indicating to you, so it's coming. So that the coming of that or arising of that is not done by the kind of objectively, because you project, you impose something, and that imposition of that, so there is, you can see the indication. So so arising of the sprout, coming of the future is coming due to the indications. It just indicates, it's an indicator. Yeah. For example, when you project the God as the creator, he does everything. Right? When the earthquake kind of, then it's he is doing this. And then the tsunami comes. Oh, the God is angry. And something good things happen. Oh, God is blessing us. So you project things, it's seemingly now is doing many things. It sees, God bless you. So, right? So you have created something and then you think that way. In this way, the future is exist. Yeah, and there's many indications. Like some people have a superstitious. When the black cat cuts, so this is I have to go back home now, so I cannot go. So yeah, and then if you cross that road, right, and then something happened, or that indicates you, black cat has done something bad to me, because you have projected that. So the indication in this way, the future is exist. So sometimes people say, yeah, this morning I went to the shop and in the store, and there's one person who's staring at me. So when I go back to my car is not, studying. so then that indicates the person who is staring at you is the cause for not studying the car. Right. Now the question is he has done that? Truly he has done that? Or your key has no battery? So the mere indications. In Tibetan, Kenyan debatams. Kenyan debatams means you say, for example, just giving a label. So giving many label, that all this label that you impose on that indicates something to you. Right. So I think it's like everything is like that, and the religious, like, and the Buddhism. So you create the image of the Buddha out of stone or clay or in metals, right? You just kind of you impose. This is represents the Buddha. It represents the Buddha Shakyamuni. This represents the Manjushri. This represents our Avalokiteshvara, right? So that indicates you many things, right? And it seems that he is blessing to you. It seems that because you have imposes on that statue as the real Buddha Shakyamuni, and with your faith, and there's something good thing happened to you, and you go look back to the Buddha. How he done that? So is he really doing that? Right? So the indication is always there.
Okay, so like in the Tara statue behind you, Dalai Lama, I think it was Dalai Lama, gave some kind of jewel to put inside the Tara as a way of blessing and consecrating the Tara and those who use the Tara as an object of refuge. Now, this suggests to me that this isn't just a mere indication, because people come in, they sit down, they look at the Tara.
Yeah.
Maybe the Tara would be an indication to them as a blessing object, for example. But they don't even know the jewel is there. I mean, they may not know. We know, but maybe not everyone would know the jewel is there. And so this suggests to me that this blessing object placed inside the Tara is not a mere indication, but something on a level much more profound than an indication. So I'm trying to make sense of this.
So maybe I'll just kind of explain like the Prasangic school. So for example, I have a Tara statue, right? So when I kind of pay homage to the Tara, I do water bowl offerings, I do things the offering to, I pray. So because of that, and something, if there's some kind of blessing, some kind of good positive changes. So there's a two kind of mind here. My mind thinks this is the one who is constantly blessing me. So then the second my mind says, is this Tara or is it clay? If the clay can give you the blessing, or it is the Tara. So that it is the Tara. I mean, Tara can be clay, Tara can be wood, Tara can be stone. So then this third my mind says, no, because the faith in the Tara is not necessarily you have putting faith in the clay. So the clays represent what you have, the Tara that you have faith in. The clay represent like you are holding the grandma's pictures and remembering all the positive things kind of right with your grandma. So is the picture, the photo itself is doing all those things? No. So you are connected to the real person, right? And then there's some changes in you. It is not conditioned by the clay or by the paper. So the paper and the clay, the represent. It reminds you, like a calendar. You have a reminder, right? Each reminder you just marked it, and it reminds you. Oh, today I have to go to see the doctor, or tomorrow, next day I have to do good grocery stores. So indicator means you have labeled something, and because of that, there's some kind of seemingly activities from the object that you have imposed. So Tara statue represents the Tara that I have faith in, right? And by bowing towards the statue of the Tara, so my main intentions and desire is not the clay, it's the real Tara. So having faith in the real Tara, right? So it's kind of, this is like mediator is the statue, right?
So is this any different than?
So what I'm saying is I'm trying to explain what is the indicator. Indicator is what you impose the statue as the Tara. Statue as a Tara is indicator, right? That indicates the smiling to you, blessing to you, right? And objectively, the statue is not doing the real Tara. Your faith in Tara and the purities of the Tara, through the connection of that, there's some blessing, some positive changes.
So is this an identical process to, this person barely missed me in the car and God protected me. I'm imposing. Is this the same process, or is there some distinction here with the Tara? Or is it an identical process?
Yeah, God. So that means the God sometimes successful, sometimes not successful. Sometimes God says, "Oops." So many times God fails to protect us. So
Is it somewhat the same process, or is there some distinction here? Oh, because I could say, oh, Tara blessed me, but then I walked out and I got hit by a car. So did Tara
Yeah.
really?
Tara's,
I could
oops.
then, what did Tara really
I
bless
was working in the kitchen. It just happened.
and I cut my finger off with a knife. So is this an identical process, or is there some distinction here? Is what I'm trying. I mean, these both involve indications, right? These both involve indications.
And I think,
But is there any difference in these two processes?
so what I'm trying to explain to you is maybe too profound for you. So, and you are going more to the conventional. Yeah. So let's talk on the conventional. So the blessing from the Tara is always there. From her side is total dedication. Now, so it's like, there is a big amount of, money that is a kind of, deposit for you. Now you have to come and get that money, right? So now this is like Tara's dedication, all her merits dedicated for each sentient beings without exceptions. So now to open that deposit, the key, the critical card is your faith. And sometimes the faith is weaker than your obstacles. Sometimes faith can overpower on obstacles. So if the faith is strong enough or pure enough to to succeed in receiving the blessing, sometimes your faith is not pure enough, not strong enough, and now other negative in the karmic force is overpowering on your faith. So the faith is failing, is not failed by Tara. So that's the conventional idea. So, so I'm trying to explain this future is mere indications. It exists through the mere indications. Means from the future its own side, there is no such thing. There is nothing to arising or to becoming. Right. So now there is the there is appearance of the coming and the arising. How this come? So why we are when we reflect on the futures, oh, this may happen, this is more closer to more possible to becoming. So you see that the possibility to becoming and stronger indication of coming, right? So do you see that do you see that from the future or somewhere else? Then I always say, yes, I see that indication from the future. So now the question is, how the future that exists, what designed the futures, what constructed, what is the basis for the existing of the future? So the future reflects by depending upon present. When there is some kind of activity in the present, that reflects in you as a future. So which means the existing of the future is not exist by themselves, it is exists, right? Exist by depending upon the present. So therefore, if the future is not exist by itself, from itself, there's nothing, and how can it is there is the activity of coming and arising. So that is the objectively negating that, right? Negating objectively. Now, and then the second question is, and what makes us see the possibility and arising and the coming in the future? So then we say, what you construct as a future, that the constructions is the indicator. The construction, right, is indicator. So that indicator is you have project that, you imposes that. Right? So there's a mere indication means that you just create something, this is possible, and then it seems it is kind of, it has some kind of activity.
Yes, Is an indicator synonymous with sign?
Yeah. Sign. Is it there's sign? So, for example, if you post the kind of, like a sign there, that indicates you. Sometimes you see the neighbors, beware of dog. Some people have dog, some people have no dog. Must beware. So there's a sign. So this sign has interpreted by outsider and inside the house. There's a dog. So in this way, the future is the sign that you imposes, that is doing something. So the doing, the appearance of the coming is not done by the sign itself. You see, right? So if you pass by the neighbor, if there is a sign of beware of a dog, if you don't look at it, sign won't call you. Hey, so I'm here. We have a dog. Sign won't say that anything. Right? When you look at the sign and you interpret that, right? If you can read English, if you don't read English, there is no sign. So the indicator is your interpretations. So the future exists through conceptually, through the interpretation, so through projecting. So
so we're talking about the two truths here.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But this raises
that's what I'm trying to say.
This raises another question.
So you're almost putting me into discriminating which one's God is powerful or Tara is powerful.
Yeah, it's the same thing. In my mind, it's similar. Now, if I go to the chapter 10, the first page, under establishing the selflessness of phenomena through reasoning, and probably mixing apples and oranges here. The first point under establishing the selflessness of phenomena through reasoning, it says, refuting arising from the four extremes on both levels of truth. When I see that term, both levels of truth, it seems to me it's talking about the absolute and the relative. I don't know if it is. That's how I'm understanding it. But what you just described here was that on the relative level, we're talking about appearance. There is coming and going on the relative level. There's coming and going. So why are we refuting the four extremes on the relative level? It seems on the relative level, we're not refuting it because we're saying, yes, in terms of appearances, there's coming and going. It doesn't seem it seems to me we're refuting it on the absolute level, but not on the relative level. Mm-hmm. But here in this sentence, it says, refuting arising from the four extremes on both levels. Do you understand my question?
Yes, I got it. So that's very good question. It's the three very good questions. Very, very, very good questions. Like Hatsudas Buddhas is excellent. So very, very, very good questions.
I'm sure the bad question is coming.
So I'm ready for that too. So here, this is like, and the both levels, the arising is not done by that indicator. And the arising is not because of there's a something in the nature of the futures, right? So, in both level, but by negating the arising of the sprout is not done by the future unborn sprout, and arising is not because of there is some kind of sprout in the nature of the future that is causing or doing some kind of the arising or the coming. So both level, there is no arising from indicator or ultimately, right? So
It's only by imposition, in
Yeah.
other words.
So imposition, yeah. So then the question is that what left here is, what left the residue of that is, by negating the coming of that sprout is not done by the future itself, and nor there is something in the nature of the futures that is doing the coming or arising. So the what is left here is now the appearance. So kind of seemingly arising, seemingly coming, right? So that is not a non-existing. That is not a non-existing. So as I mentioned, when you kind of when you build a statue, and then you just bow and offer and doing the prostrations, right? So there is the indications. So that is not a non-existing. So the appearance of coming or arising is not a non-existing. Like, for example, in the medieval Savatantric school says the magicians, like the old-time the magicians, they call, in the Hindi they so kind of jaduwalas. Jaduwala means it's not just a trick. There's some kind of mantras. They kind of deceive your eye. So then they create something, and you see the elephant and the horses and just playing around. So that illusion-like object, illusion-like phenomena, is not a non-existing. It has condition. It has condition because all these mantras and the substance, and then your eye being kind of influenced by the mantras, and all together there is the arising. So that kind of the arising is not a non-existing, is the product of these all three factors. So now this appearance is also not truly exist as it appears, right? So it is not a non-existing, it's not exist truly as it appears. That is the conventional reality. So that's called, it exists merely through indication. Right. So in Tibetan, Kenyan debatams. So they means just by labeling. This is horse, this is cow, this is table, this is human being, this is male, this is female. Just by labeling many times right in the thought. And there's so many indicators. It indicates you, right? Like I think this is how the world kind of the acts. So because of they impose many things. So these people are good, these people are bad. And now by imposing, now it seems, yes, true. These people are very bad. These people are very good. All the good things it indicates to you. And then next year you may change. Oh, those people I thought they are good. It's not good. So other people is good. Yeah, again it's seeming true. Yeah, these people done this bad things, or these people good doing good things. So it's like a, so wherever you take side, so that seems more positive. So wherever you detach, it seems more negative to you. So this all done by your indication, your projections.
Yeah, I like the term attribution or your characterization,
Yeah.
your attribution.
Your
Because
attributions.
indication kind of, unfortunately, kind of suggest that there's something in the object itself that's indicated in it. It's not in the object itself. It's because of our own attribution. So I think the word indication I find a bit misleading because it sounds like it's outside ourselves. It's really happening by our own attribution. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I
If you
follow.
say-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, now it's time to kind of how say find which one's more definitive to you. So attributions or indications. So for me, it's more comfortable with indications because right now
Right.
we are talking about coming, arising, something there is not yet exist, right? But still seeing it is coming. It is right. Is it coming soon? It is not coming not that soon. It takes months. So there's so many things that you see, right? But reality, there is no such thing at all, right? But what you're seeing is the indications. There's the indicators. So the attributions means, yeah. So I argue from my own side. The attribution is there's something that you attribute, characterize, because you see something. So in the future, there is no such thing at all to characterize or to attribute. And
So you attribute that the future as you see it is coming.
huh?
You are attributing, but you are attributing. You're attributing the future as you characterize it is coming.
So you attribute the right by depending on the potential of the cause which is in the present, and then you attribute this is coming, right? So
Yes.
once you attribute this is the coming, that indicates you, yes, I am coming. Right. So it's a fixed attribute because you attribute something, you characterize something, and it seems it is doing something. Right? In the reality, there is no such thing in there to do, to come, anything. Right. So as a middle way, you attributions and indications. So because of the attributions, there is the indications. Because you out of faith, you attribute something, right? Oh, male deity, female deities, they're attributing that, and then people may find, oh, I'm more closer to this, I'm closer to that. So from the Buddha own side,
Okay.
right? Huh? Yeah.
Are we ready for my next question?
Yeah. So
I
the
have
bad
a
one, brother, the bad
question.
one. So please.
This
The
is
good
my
one is
bad
done.
question. Maybe this is my bad one. So this is in page 193. I'm sure you talked about this, but I didn't get it. It says towards the end of that
Which line?
top paragraph, it's right about the fourth line above the end of the paragraph on top. It says, I am not saying it is incorrect to take the negation of arising from the four extremes as the logical reason to
Yeah.
establish the absence of intrinsic arising, as is done in the light of the middle way.
Mhm.
So he seems, first of all, I have a lot of trouble dissecting this sentence. I have trouble understanding this, but the one thing I seem to understand or appear to understand is he's saying the light of the middle way presents this one way, but I am not saying that.
No, no.
I'm not saying it as it is stated in the light of the middle way. That's how I'm reading this.
Okay. So this is not a bad question. So I was expecting the bad one. This is, for example, there's a, if Lama Tsongkapha first says, you don't read in this way, saying you don't read in this way, that nothing arises intrinsically because things do not arise from itself and other and both and without cause. Rather, you read, things do not arise from itself, right? And other and both and without cause, ever, right? Any time, anywhere. So Lama Tsongkapha says, this is how you read the first stanzas. And then someone says, and how about, and how's the light of the middle way, the Baba Vivek, see, he kind of, lays out the reasoning, like for syllogistic reasonings, saying things do not arise intrinsically because things do not arise from itself and other and both and without cause. The way he lays out is not from itself, not from other, not from both, not without cause are the criteria establishing that things do not arise intrinsically. So Lama Tsongkapha, you are saying you are not supposed to read the first stanzas as saying nothing arises intrinsically because things do not arise from itself and from other, from both, and without cause. How? So this is how the Baba Vivek says, and you are saying you don't read this way. So Lama Tsongkapha was saying, I'm not saying there is no way, I'm not saying there is a way of establishing, so right, in the syllogistic reasoning. I'm simply saying, first stanzas you should not read in this ways. First stanzas should not read in this way, right? So all of stanzas put together, and it comes, things do not arise intrinsically because things do not arise from itself and from other and from both without no cause. So the four chronologics, four kind of, the negation element, by negating them and establishing nothing arises intrinsically is correct.
They're not getting it. It seems they're saying the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Maybe they're getting it. It
So
sounds
you may,
like you're
you may
saying
hear money
they're getting to it in different ways.
money pay me who, money pay me who, same.
Huh?
Or money pay me who and money pay me who are same. So Lama Tsongkapha says the first stanzas you shouldn't be read like it not really kind of explicitly stating the whole logic. It just kind of stating the four chronologic. First stanza is supposed to be kind of states four chronologic. There is no establishment. And the second stanzas and third stanzas and all kind of pointing at, so right, nothing arises intrinsically, right? Nothing arises intrinsically because the things do not arise from itself and other and both and without cause. This not really, yeah. So
Sounds like me. It sounds the same to me.
That's what
They're
Lama
both
Tsongkapha.
saying that.
Yeah, that's what
They're
Lama
both
Tsongkapha.
maintaining that.
Uh-huh.
But maybe Tsongkapha is trying to say you have to analyze each part of that first. I don't know. Is he saying you have to break down each one by itself first, instead of just accept it as being that way? You have is he trying to suggest you have to go through the analytical?
So I think here another kind of the possibility of opening to more kind of it may help you to more clear. Another question is, so if the first stanzas is stating right whole logic in there, right, nothing arises intrinsically because things do not arise from itself and other and from both and without cause, is whole explicitly stated in the first stanzas. Then the second stanzas there, Dalemayi Shenemi, Nilemayi Jumebo, Mobu Kandakanya, Joan, Mobu Namje Rashin, the Jano Solo Yomani, Dago Mobu Yuma, the Shamoyo. Nature of the things do not, right? Mobu the Jano Solo, nature of the effect or nature of the sprout, it never exists, right? Never exists within the kind of seed and all the assembly of cosmic conditions. Therefore, things do not arise from itself and others. So the question is, the second stanza is repeating the first stanza or not? That's all you say. If the repeating, the why Nagarjuna has to repeat, right, the same logic once more in the second stanzas. So, and many times, many of the Nagarjuna and the Buddha Palitas, the Buddha Palita and the Chandrakirti says, in Nagarjuna there is no repeating. So it seems the first stanza, the second stanzas is the same thing. So to make it more clear, Lama Tsongkapha says, first stanzas should, right, read. So explicitly mentioning no arising from the four corner logic. That is the only kind of statement that stated in the explicitly stated in the first stanzas. Now to more elaborate in the second stanzas, because things means effect, the nature of the effect never exists within the cause and the corporate conditions. So therefore, so there is no way that the effect can arise by itself in others. So the next stanzas is making more kind of, what do you call
Purification.
Purification, huh? Clarifications, yeah. Clarifications. So then after the third stanzas, so then more emphasizing precisely about the future, the nature of the futures. So there is no activity of unborn sprout, right? Or without activity, there is no seed as being conditions. So it's more and more kind of, kind of deepening in the objective kind of, objective negations, yeah. So Lama Tsongkapha, this is how Lama Tsongkapha says. If you read in this way, it will give you the clarity. If you read the first stanzas, it's all about whole kind of syllogistic in stated in the first stanzas, and you can see the second stanza is just repeating the first one. So you don't see the difference, right? The kind of difference of the first stanzas and the second stanzas. So if you insist that first stanzas and the second stanzas I don't have any problem with repeating, then it's yours. Right? If you want more, you can have more. so I'm simply trying to help you to bring more better sense in this understanding. So this is the scholarly how you read to benefit you to gain the clear knowledge from this. So, so this is the you can also find sometime the stanzas, like first one stanza, the chapter 1, Nagarjuna, the first chapter, and the second chapter, and the first, how they're related. And if you understand the, what do you call it? The connection, yeah. If you see the connections, it gives you more deeper knowledge. Without connections, if you just, this is one chapter, this is second chapter, you cannot relate them. Again, it's not much the benefit to you. Right? So in this way, the stanzas, if you read, each emphasize in a different way, and it gives you more clarities. Right? So he is not talking about the salesman. He is talking about this scholarly salesman says, yeah, if you had two iPhones, both iPhone 14 and then GB 512, the both, and then I would say this may be better. It comes with this case. It comes with this thing. There's a sticker. So it explained to you, and you find, oh, looks like this one's better than the other. So that's the deceptions. So that's Lama Tsongkapha we're trying to. This sounds from the beginning. It sounds not much making sense to you, but with the cautions, the people have this kind of ambiguity. So why he is saying don't read, right? The whole syllogistic in first stanzas. So I find that there is whole stanzas. So why I don't read in this way? The second stanzas, if you read the whole and you don't see the difference in the different emphasis on the second stanzas, to see the each stanzas is emphasizing on a different way, right? So then this will bring more clarity, some more deeper understanding. For that purpose, and Lama Tsongkapha, you shouldn't be reading the first stanzas like this. So he is not saying there's no way of reading in this way. So there is the way.
Okay, I kind of get it now.
Yeah, if you don't read the stanza, you don't see it. You just looking at my eye, you can't understand the difference. So when you read the stanzas, first stanzas and second stanzas, so what they say, what is the the second stanzas is emphasizing on what? Right. Second stanzas emphasizing that the effect, the coming that you're calling and coming, arising. So if you are referring that arising is the effect, and then Lama Tsongkapha was, yes, the second sentence says that the effect never really exists in the seed or all the corporate conditions. So which means that anything that arises, the thing is not there existing with the cause, right? And then this thing the effect should not be exist without a cause or with a cause. So that pretty much can explain to you, that brings more clarity that if the effect is arising by itself, if the arising by itself, and so why it is not arising with the cause, why it is not arising without cause. So if effect is doing by itself, is arising, why it need to depending on seed? Without seed, there is no arising. So the second stanza is kind of making more clarity to kind of in how things do not arise intrinsically. So, and then the second is, therefore, things do not arise from other and itself and both. Yeah, I think still, because the effect is, the effect do not exist with the cause, or means during the cause, right? Simultaneously with cause, or coexisting with cause. And the effect is not coexisting with cause, and so do effect exist without a cause? Again, that is not possible. So if the effect is not existing with cause or without cause, then how can effect arise by itself? So it kind of, it's more, now you understand why things do not arise by itself. Yeah, I think you just maybe go back to the chapter 1 and then see what's the stanza number 1 saying, the stanza number 2, and you can see. Sometimes, someone who's, sometimes this is also happening during his own teachings. Some people, from the beginning, it's just to talk about Four Noble Truths, the Bodhisattva, and they just, he's always speaking the same. And they say, maybe I'll just, listen through online, or I'll just go back to room. And they miss many things, right? So the main kind of, point is always he's repeating it, and he brings different kind of, criterions to emphasizing on that. So you are not noticing those, the criterions. You just, this I heard, Bodhisattva, I know that.
Yeah.
It sounds like very cheap now. So yeah, that's the kind of, they're very details. If you go by details and you see each stanzas emphasize on the different criteria. Yeah.
So basically, I haven't exercised or increased my capacity to appreciate all these distinctions.
So it's still good, so with discussing, bringing the questions, new ambiguities, new doubt, new curiosities, all beneficial to other listeners. So it makes me more kind of, so the kind of energized to try more harder to explain things. So it's always good. So there's nothing bad. Everything is good. So yeah, so these are very kind of very precisely, and we're trying to kind of how to say what to call. Sometimes people says more profound or more deeper into the realities, or objectively kind of analyzing, examining in the object that you're engaging every day. So if you go closer and closer and closer, and you can see that the very nature of the object, right? So object of anger, object of attachment, object of jealousy, object of faith, object of compassion, and object of the kind of desirable objects. So all the objects, nature is always exactly the same. So always exists through conceptualizations and projections. So some objects, they could not bear to examine, analyze. They just simply, when you analyze, they disappears forever. So those objects is not really stable or not really verifiable, right? Verifiables. Some of the object, how much you negate, dismantle, this like a rubber, you just kind of push it, push it more stronger, and if you stop pushing it, again it comes back. So those called conventional reality as a conventional truth. Some just by examining and then disappear forever. So those are objects of anger and attachments. Those objects, just by kind of bringing your mind closer and analyze and examine, they never come back. So that's why it's very, very important, essential to objectively examining the reality. So the flip side of that is, so if you don't kind of so here the mindfulness here in Tibetan terms, tempa nyawar shabas. Tempa is mindful with placing your mind closer to the object, right? So you mean you are kind of trying to see more closer, more more objective in the object. So that really kind of helps you to reduce and kind of overcome the misconceptions, because the misconception is the beginning of the pain, beginning of the suffering. So the Buddha, Sangye, Sang means purified, or kind of you purified all the defilements, and what you become is the able one, the able ones who have so here the praises to the Bodhisattva, the teacher who understand how is that. Yeah, sometimes I forgot this. The Savior, a great compassion, teacher having all understandings. So all understanding, because of you have purified all the defilements. Purifying defilement is the way to gaining the knowledge about the reality, perfecting the knowledge. So the enlightened, or the Sangye, that's it. Because the ignorance and actively grasping the wrong object is the suffering itself. Yeah. Any other questions? So here we are talking about an empty and dependent arising. So the dependent arising and empty is this essentially the same. Empty, so the empty of intrinsic nature, therefore, is relatively existing, dependent arising. Because the things dependent arising, therefore, the things are empty by itself. Right? Things do not exist by itself, therefore, it has to dependently arise. So this dependent, again, we say, this dependent is not like a flower depending in the pot. And forest depending on the mountain. It's not two substantial things, one kind of on the top of others. So dependent arise, the very existing, right? Very existing of someone become tall is because of this one who is shorter than. So without existing of something, you comparison, or without existing of the shorter, there is no existing of tall. Right? Because without existing of favorable, there is no unfavorable. Without existing unfavorable, there is no favorable. Without obstructive object, there is no space. Without space, there is no obstructive phenomena. So it's relatively exist. Space do not exist by itself. Space does not define by itself. Space is defined by depending upon obstructive things. So that's why it's a dependent. The very existing of the phenomena is a dependent, not by itself. So in this way, the chapter 4 and talking about even the color, smell, taste, tactilities, how these things really exist. It exists, right, as a 4 because of the 4 or 5 is because of the 4 door, 4 sense power. Or 5 sense power, therefore there are 5. Not because of the color that it exists by itself as a different from the smell. Smell do not exist by itself separate from the tactilities. In that case, there's like an elephant, horse, and cow, and a cat like that. So then it should be located within the substance, within the form, and separately. So they are not being separate by themselves. They are separate because of this 4 sense power. So one woman can be, perceived in the 4 ways: one mother's, one daughter's, one wife. So not because the woman is become 4 person. So the 4 because the 4 people. So it's relatively, right? So it's not because a woman decided, oh, today I'm going to mother, not daughter. She cannot do that, right? She is only the daughter, right? But depending on the mothers. From the mother's perspective, she is daughter. She is not deciding herself as the daughter. So the dependent, pratita samutpat, right? Something happened. because of this previously what you have constructed, something you have, right? You have created, therefore this one seems separate from it. So this, the relativities is to kind of, the relativity theories is the tool to use, the generating the bodhicitta, the exchanging self to the others. Everything is interconnected, right? To bring to make yourself more happier, and you have to take care of things that are connected to you. If you want to take care of your fruit tree, and you have to, you have to kind of, you have to take care of the water, fertilizers, and clean up the areas. So many things. You cannot just simply, I like that fruit tree, I just polish it, the leaves. By doing that, it won't give you any fruits. So taking care of something that other than the tree itself is taking care of the tree. So the opposite, the ordinary, the samsara being is, so we see independent nature. So if I like myself, and it seems like, it kind of, so compelled by your habit, saying, now I shouldn't be taking care of that person. I should ignore, I should detach them. So that brings more suffering to yourself. So like when you take care of a house, you have to think the other than the house itself, many things. So yeah, taking care of the body is depending on the other than the body itself, like food and the, cleanings and plates and spoons, all of them. So by taking care of those, right, you're taking care of your body. So the interconnections is the kind of, it opens the possibility of generating, exchanging self to the others. So the Bodhisattvas are very, very intelligent because they seize they seize the condition, the connectivity that brings the happiness to you. So they dedicate their whole merits and whole activities to dispelling the suffering of others. It's essentially what they see is, this is the only way, this is the only path that brings me more happier. So yeah, that's the interdependent is the only, this is the kind of, the ultimate key, the master key to opens generating bodhicitta and compassion. But still, yeah, because you see everything, your color that you see is interconnections, the smell is interconnected, exist, the taste and tactilities, and each emotions is kind of relatively exist. Yeah, this, yeah. So you have to feed our mind that is being brainwashed for so long. So so not just from this life, from many, many lives. Right? So that's kind of, acting habitually, not rationally. Yeah, okay. So, Chanchu Simjo Rinpoche, Ajebana, Jeju, Kebanyamba, Mevanya, Kone Kondo, Pewashi, Tonya Tawa Rinpoche, Majebana, Jeju, 깨바냐 매바냐 고네 고도 펴고 파마 심전 탐제 대다 된주지 년도 탐제 따도 또 chanjusemma kana sushube tada kunje mono dubju karera wego beshinonzo pendante womo no jovade jereson tinzinja zuji shabe side padu tenjuji
May the precious Bodhi mind arise. May the polar do not decline and increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May the polar do not decline and increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all their happiness, and may all lower realms be in you forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful transcendental, we may move forward unto samsara.
thank you much no